Hello dudes and lady dudes, Jean here, and today we're going to talk about something that's probably one of the last videos from 2019 crap talk to 2020, where Jean condenses things down for people instead of ranting it for half an hour. Try to keep it under 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And that is the idea that feminism, modern feminism, is actually demeaning towards women. Now, how can that be? Feminism is all about women's rights and empowerment and blah, 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 blah. No, it is not. First of all, let's start with the premise. The premise of feminism is that we live in the patriarchy. It's a man's world. Men have all the power and control. How did men get that power and control? Well, men bullied and overpowered and women were too weak to do anything. Or men were deceitful and lied and tricked, and women were too stupid to do anything. The idea of feminism comes from the idea, or modern feminism, I should say, comes from the idea that women were too weak and or stupid to stay equal towards men. And that's just demeaning. I don't think that, and most non-feminists don't think that. The differences in men and women, and yes, there has been abuses, but there hasn't only been abuses from one side. I'm going to just throw that right away because sometimes it's like, oh yeah, we will concede a point. I'm not conceding a point. There's been abuses, and yes, there's been abuses on grand scales, society scales that we can see. Women's suffrage, they get the right to vote, all this blah 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 blah. Sure, yes, you're right. But at the same time, during all these times, there's still abuses the other way around. Oh, women don't abuse men. Actually, polls and surveys have actually shown that if you just ask, is your partner abusive in different sex couples, or your spouse, that let's say I forget what it is, 1 in 3 say yes, my partner is actually abusive. 93% of those yeses will be women. So obviously that means men make up 93% of the abusers, right? Same surveys, different question. If you ask, has your partner ever physically used violence against you, used physical violence against you? Most of these, yes, my partner's been abused, have actually switched to, well, no, they've never been physically violent towards me. But men, many of my partner is not abusive, have said, yes, actually, my partner has used physical violence against me. Over 50%, I think it's close to 60% of men in these same survey, or out of the yeses that my partners use physical violence, again, we'll say about a third. It's actually 60% of them, over half of the yeses are actually men. And this goes on the same. Has my partner used directed insults against me? Women who say abuse, they well, my partner's never actually physically struck me or insulted me or these things. Where men are like, well, I wasn't abused, but yeah, she hit me and she would call me names and belittle me. And so this idea that, well, men are the abusers, when you actually look at the stats and you are you abusive? Women will say, men are abusive. Men say women are not abusive. But when you get to the actual abuse, it shows that men are receiving abuse where women aren't actually receiving abuse. Yet they're still ingrained with this idea that they are abused. Yeah, you go into society, as far as laws, any law that signals out any person is um, is bigotry. It is prejudice. To say women have the right to do this, that is a prejudiced law. That is a sexist law. It should just be understood that all rights go to all people equally. And in fact, by saying that, well, women need this specific right, you're saying that we admit there's a difference and that women should not normally be able to do this, but we are making an exception for them. Laws are like an exception. When you're giving people the right to do something, that is the exception to do that. That's saying the innate design, the innate societal way would be that it's understood they don't have that right. They shouldn't have that right. But we're letting them. So this goes on to racism as well. Well, people of color should be able to vote. Well, yeah, but don't put that in because you've now actually made a divide, saying that normally they should not be able to vote. Say, well, at the time and all this stuff. No, no. What you needed at the time was the fact that the law states that people get to vote, that people get to do this, that people get to go to whichever bathroom they want. Like that's just it. That is right. We don't have to put it into law. So back to feminism. Um, so it's demeaning to women because it's saying women are too weak and stupid or stupid. It misses the point that yeah, there have been times where women have been the victims of prejudice, but at the same time, uh, men are the victims of different prejudice. Um, there's also the idea of what they say is abuse. What they say is abuse and what they say is right and wrong isn't an abusive behavior. It's the fact that there are differences. We look at nature and we don't, see the anglefish and the female anglefish is this big and the male anglefish is this big, and we don't say that's wrong. We just understand. Well, we look at human history, and the men have always been the hunter-gatherer, tribesman, warrior type people, and the women have lived in the villages. And that's the way it is. That's the way it naturally developed. Even looking back at tribal history, we see that women actually had a lot of power in the village, where men had a lot of power kind of out of the village and different tribal relations, because they were the ones running into the other tribe. They were running into the other men. So it makes sense that men dealt with that and women dealt with this, and it's always been that way. But feminism has come and said that no, we need to be the out in the village people because of the way our society is. And it's not even so much that's wrong, it's that they're now actually trying to force women out of the home, rather than most women still are like, but we like these places where you're biologically and psychologically geared towards. Most of us actually prefer that. And it doesn't take very long on Google to find prominent feminists saying that they don't want to give women the choice of being homemakers, because many women will choose that, and we can't have that. So now, putting that aside, feminism also, we have the U.S. women's soccer team problem. We need to be paid as much as men. But that makes no sense. You literally could not have a women's soccer team if you are, because money doesn't appear out of nowhere. Men's soccer team gets money because people pay that much money to watch men. If you want to be treated like that, maybe you should go try out for the men's soccer team. Unfortunately, you can't beat a high school prep team, a boys' high school prep team. There's a difference there. And you say, well, that's just, this and that. It's like, I'm all for women's playing every single sport. I think there absolutely should be options for women to play any sport they want. Of course, now we're seeing issues where trans men that are middling all of a sudden, or women or men that are middling becomes trans women's and just crush everything, and women are being driven out of their own sports. That's a different issue. But this idea that, well, we have to be equal, it doesn't work, because okay, you have to be equal. You can't even make a beer league senior team because high schoolers can beat you. And in this idea of that's come out of this as pushing, look what we have done. What they've actually done is they've actually demeaned many more women. Remember, after their 13-0 or 13-1 victory over the U.S. World Cup, saying this is why we should be able to, or the World Cup, Women's World Cup, this is why we should be paid as much. What they're also kind of driving in is that this other women's team who got just destroyed isn't adequate, isn't worthy. A lot of feminism actually steps on other women to get to where they are. A lot of feminism is very, very cruel, openly, to other women. The women that they see as less worthy are suddenly subhuman. The women that feminism sees as less worthy are treated as bad or worse than, almost most of North American history. Just look at how they talk about it. Look how they talk about other cultures where feminism has actually needed, where women's rights are abused, while they don't exist. And you just see, oh man, this team, they've risen out of poverty. They have literally fought against abuse of power and whatever to make a soccer team to compete on the world stage, and we absolutely destroyed them. We are standing on their dead soccer careers because they got humiliated so bad. They likely will not have a soccer league for women for another 30 years because their country is going to tell them, you have been absolutely humiliated and we will not let that happen on the world stage again. But we are standing on their, not only their, but their daughters, their granddaughters, we're standing on their hopes and dreams and saying that we deserve better. Even though we have better, even as a female athlete on an Olympic stage making less money than the males in similar sports, you are still part of the highest crust of society, the highest paid people. You literally don't have to have a job. You can do something that many people pay money to, many adults can't even pay money to continue playing because they don't have the time, they have to work, or they don't have the body, or whatever. You are part of this elite, and you're saying you don't have enough. It's demeaning. It's demeaning to women because it says that women aren't strong or smart enough to get it. It's demeaning to women because well, it's hypocritical because it separates abuse, and what is abusive towards a woman is not abusive towards a man, and it requires them stomping on women to get there. I was going through the whole having to switch male characters to female. They're so unwilling to make a strong woman lead that they have to make a strong male lead and then convert him to a woman, which is also demeaning. But over 10 minutes already. Let's try to get it under 15 minutes. And it's just like, come on, people, wake up. Like women, this is. And the thing is we know that women aren't like this actually in your day to day. Well, not a lot of women are like this, but the women that are usually the ones, the elite in power. It's like that Hollywood speaks for us all. These women in power speak for us all. The elite speaks for us all. But it just doesn't work. It doesn't work in practice. It doesn't work in theory. It just looks bad. It feels bad, and it creates hate. It all creates hate. Another point I wanted to get to, but we're over time, and not the point there. So I had 2 more points, but now I've just completely slipped my mind. The other point. Sorry guys, but if you like this video, if you agree, like, share, subscribe, all that wonderful stuff. If you dislike this video, go feed a homeless woman and empower her. Do something that actually empowers her. And then, thumbs down, let John know below to spite him, because clearly he hates women, and by empowering a homeless woman, you would spite John. Thanks for watching, and I hope you'll be back.